We continue right away, and I would call up our next moderator, Timon Rupp. And Timon will look, and we still stay in the mobility space. We have a conversation with a distinguished group of experts here on stage, looking at startups and innovation hubs and who is driving the disruption in the mobility industry. Welcome to the stage, Timon.
Hey! I love the vibe of this year's Asia Berlin Summit. It's special. I've been there last year, but this year is something really special. I enjoy to have the diverse crowd here, the networking during lunchtime, and now looking forward to tackle a challenge that has not been so far mentioned. In the morning, we learned that we have in Berlin a great innovation startup hub with all it takes. We have learned that we have in Asia fantastic startup and innovation hubs in Hong Kong, in Japan, in Korea, in China. But what we did not yet discuss, how to create impact, the most possible sustainable impact out of it. Because here comes the challenge and the truth. The last disruptive innovation in automotive came from US, Tesla. Another hard truth, the last disruptive innovation, potentially disruptive in AI, came from OpenAI, a company from US, hardly 500 employees. So what do we have to do to bring the power, the horsepower between Asia and Berlin to the road to create sustainable impact in mobility? And who better to ask? And now let me welcome my first panelist, Chika Yamamoto, CEO and founder of 123 Factory, passionate of building bridges from Japan to Berlin. Chika, come on here. Applause. Please also welcome her counterpart from Korea. It's Eunseo Yi from 123 Factory, founder and COO, bridge builder to Korea, to Berlin. Also welcome to me is Tanah from GoTo. He's an ESG expert from Indonesia, ex-World Economic Forum. Welcome, Tanah. Last but not least, a gentleman, Maximilian. Maximilian Schäfer is the CEO and founder of InstaFreight, a startup from the logistic area. So we have the full picture of mobility here on stage. So yeah, let's see how we can. Sorry, thank you. Chika, I start from the east and go to the west. Japan. We heard Japan. We all know Japan for fantastic innovation, large corporates. What role do startups play today in the mobility ecosystem? And what is maybe the difference to the Berlin one? Because you are a resident in Berlin today, right?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because when we talk about the startup, we often talk about lots of innovation and invention, which you just said, like lots of things come from United States. And that's probably a similar situation in Japan too. There's like a very strong presence of big car companies in Japan, and lots of innovation. They have like a huge R&D centers inside, and to disrupt something like that, it's not that easy, and then they were funding a lot to the universities. So the startup is really looking for new use cases that corporate are not paying attention to, or they haven't prioritized enough, as well as they are like material companies. They are creating enabling like technologies, but not like a Mars solution, but part of the solution that is going to solve like more from like a cleaner solution point of view. And the comparing to like Germany, for example, the regulations and things like that are a little bit different too. And in Germany, especially in Berlin, I saw the rise of e-scooters, and then that now came to kind of milder kind of ecosystem, and everybody kind of coexist, and we know how we are coexisting. And that is just starting in Japan. So there's one Japanese startup created e-scooters, and then city by city, prefecture by prefecture, is still like expanding, and now like Voi is like going to go to Japan, and some new way of riding the scooter, but better way of riding the scooter is also coming up from the Hondas and accelerator too. So that's the situation.
So you're saying that in Japan, the first generation of successful mobility startups is just on the rise, on the horizon, and while in Berlin we have already second and third generations of entrepreneurs.
Yes,
right?
Let's say so. And then they will be, as a challenger, can improve it on it. So there will be new solution, but probably better solution.
Okay, perfect. Eunseo, how is the situation in Korea, and especially in the area of mobility startups? Is similar to Japan or to Berlin, or completely different again?
Yeah, it's there is a long story to explain compared to Japan and compared to Berlin, but most of all, Korean industry are a little bit different from German industry. For example, there are some large corporates in Korea, you know maybe very well, Samsung or Hyundai Motors or LG. So the structure of industry is quite big corporate centralized. So the role of startup would be that they should make this structure of industry a little bit different. So for example, this startup can be disruptive and can get more innovative ideas, and then they also could be big corporates. And in 10 years, there are some changes. For example, startups can bring some possibilities to be as a big tech companies or as a big corporates. For example, the most successful stories about startups would be Kakao. Kakao is kind of WhatsApp messenger in Korea. They started their idea with Kakao, with the messenger, but they are not now the big company. And in 2011, one of the delivery platform startup called Ua Brothers, which is now acquired by Delivery Hero in Berlin, they also started their idea very small, but they are now one of the big tech company in Korea. So this success stories from Korean startup make Korean industry a little bit changed. I mean, so yeah, it would be maybe, yeah.
Very interesting. So you have a first generation of successful unicorns in Korea already.
Right.
That others can follow. Perfect. Tanah, you're a really expert on ESG, environment, sustainability. I've seen you on BBC, I think. So,
maybe.
I'm very curious, and maybe the crowd as well, what, from your perspective, role do startups play creating a better world, a more sustainable world, ESG-approved world? Do they have an impact at all? Is it just the big companies, or does it matter?
I think it's a collective effort. If you look at what is happening in Indonesia, where you have industry incumbents like these monstrous, conglomerates and whether they're in agriculture, whether they're in automotive manufacturing, and you name it, all these established industries, they cannot single-handedly tackle sustainability issues. Trust me, all of them have sustainability commitments, but if you actually follow the money and see what they're doing from an operational perspective, it still pretty much remains status quo. So you have to have technology companies, disruptive companies, and I mean tech in both actual tech and brick and mortar tech, right? Because technology doesn't always have to be very advanced. And in our case in Indonesia, some of these brick and mortar solutions are actually the things that are making these shifts possible towards more sustainable operations as a company. It's just that you need a new way, a disruptive way of thinking. So I always say, young people and young companies that are coming in and disrupting the way that things have been done for decades for a lot of these established industry players. And generally speaking in Indonesia, I think they are open to working with companies like ours. We are no longer a startup, unfortunately, because we're 10,000 people and now publicly listed and all of that. But yet we still think like a startup. That said, we have a lot of partners who are startups because we have an incredible ecosystem. For those of you who are not familiar with GoTo Group, we contribute around 2% of Indonesia's GDP now. We have around 2.7 million drivers in our fleet, 17.7 million merchants. Over 95% of them are micro SMEs. We're not trying to be an Amazon. They operate and sell independently to our 59 million annual transacting users who are spending around 25% of their monthly income on our platform. We are literally at the forefront of the digital economy in the country. And so that's why I say we can't be considered a startup necessarily. But that said, we need a lot of these kind of up-and-coming solutions to come in and not just integrate into our own operations, but actually scale across the millions of merchants and driver partners and what have you in our ecosystem, and the consumers as well. So they provide solutions that serve the merchants, the consumers, the driver partners, and us as a company. And I will say this one last thing. I mean, all these solutions that we've tested so far, for us, none of this has come at a cost. Sustainability at our company is not a cost center anymore. And that is an amazing thing for us, that we've been able to reduce or replace OpEx for our company, and as a result, make it something cost effective and scalable for all of those micro SMEs that operate on our platform.
Amazing story. So you have shown that, yes, startups can make a difference, can make an impact, and even once you grew, you replicate what you have done and support other startups to do the same. So it's a kind of self-accelerating ecosystem kind of thing you build up, right?
Because our ecosystem actually provides them a very safe sandbox to test and iterate some of their solutions. And this is where we actually look outside because, sorry, I'm blabbering on. I know I shouldn't. Actually, men talk all the time. I'm gonna keep going with this. But
sorry, Max, we come there.
We'll come to you, Max. No, but look, I think we need all of these solutions to be able to we are a mini replica of the Indonesian market. That said, in Indonesia, we haven't invested as well as we should have in R&D and deep tech and all the solutions that you might see in more advanced economies like in Japan. Even what Korea has done in the last 50 years is incredible. Unfortunately, Indonesia doesn't operate as smoothly and efficiently as Korea does. But that said, we have to look outside because a lot of our climate targets we don't have time on our side, right? We don't have the same runway that a Korea or a Japan might have had, or a Germany for that matter, to be able to address these challenges. And so for us, we actually now are looking outside to a lot of these other innovation ecosystems from places like Europe to be able to serve as a bridge for these tech companies, these startups to come into Indonesia, test their solutions in our ecosystem, within our operations, and iterate upon their solutions so that, because again, it's the perfect sandbox for them. And if they can make it work in our ecosystem, they can make it work across the Indonesian market.
So that goes to all Berlin startups.
Yes.
Perfect sandbox in Indonesia.
Yes.
Maybe not on the radar yet, but I heard a lot about the Indonesian software skill set as well. So it's a big movement going on there. And it's a bit sad that we heard it before on the stage, in Germany might not be aware yet of the problems ahead of us, and we are not yet as open as other countries are. Maximilian, sorry for the... looking forward for you to bring another perspective on the topic of startup impact from the logistic point of view. I mean, you have had tons of experience in TNT, and now you made your own company. What is your experience as a startup yourself and the impact startups can have in the logistics sector?
So Tanah, first to your point, usually I sit on a lot of logistics panels which are very male-dominated, so I'm very happy to be underrepresented on this panel. So just, I mean, very briefly, InstaFreight, we're also a platform business. We are very focused on the road freight trucking industry, and essentially what we're doing, we're bringing shippers, so everyone who sends a truck from A to B, together with carriers. So there's quite a few parallels. It is the market sounds really boring, but is so absolutely fascinating, because take a look around you, 80% of what you see was at a truck at some point. So trucking is the backbone of European trade. It's super important, and yet it is, I mean, it is so inefficient and it is so outdated, you have no idea. And that's mostly because it's very fragmented. There's more than 700,000 small owner enterprise trucking companies who on average have somewhere between 5 to 7 trucks. And essentially what we are doing, we're putting them on a platform and making them available to shippers. And yes, changing this in a market is, well, it's extremely challenging, it's exciting, and I think like my role in this is, at the end, you know, that's the effort of a lot of people. You need investors, you need customers, you need talent from all over the world, and I think my impact in this is a little bit less connected to my background logistics, but it's more about like selling a vision, bringing people together, and there actually I've lived more than 7 years abroad in Asia Pacific, in China, India, the US, Russia, and I think that is actually what has helped me a lot in getting people from all over the globe together under one vision, basically. And the rest, let the experts figure it out. I'm not that big of a logistics expert, actually.
So now we heard that, again, that great things are happening in the different Asian countries. And maybe your point give us some inspiration. Logistics is living from very smooth value chains, seamless, on time, efficient, cost efficient, time efficient. But that's logistics. What can we probably learn on how to bring now what we have in the Asian countries to Europe and vice versa, to create this network ecosystem for innovation that is probably working like a logistic ecosystem, on time, always connected, seamless, effective. So I think, starting again from Japan, I think, Chika, your daily business is to create that flow of innovation, right, in both directions. Maybe you can tell a little bit your secret sauce on how you do?
Right, so so what I do is to bring Japanese startups to here, European startups to Japan, also like work with corporate who are looking for missing piece or innovation or partner from Europe. And how I do it is by connecting also like two stronger hubs, I would say. Like, so the Drivery is really like one of the biggest, if it's not the biggest, really like a mobility hub in Europe, which has like over 100 of startups and ecosystem players, including VCs and all sorts of players, including us actually. And Japan also has a very strong mobility kind of cluster here and there, but they are not all connected to connect to Europe's sake. So they are all over, they have their own ecosystems, but not all the players want to connect directly to Europe or to the United States. So that's what I'm trying to create, that we have this really like a great place which has connection to different technologies and startups and knowledges, and a person like you who knows really the market as well as the players, that you understand also like who to connect, where to connect, and we would like to replicate that also in Japan so that we can do vice versa. That's the reason that we are collaborating with the city of Yokohama to try to create like the Drivery Japan, like physically in Japan. And yes. We'll stop here for now, but we'll come back.
Okay, but I think it's clear that you point out that innovation business at the end is people business, and if you don't connect the people, there will be no results at the end on technology as well. Eunseo, Korea, do you have a similar strategy, or how do you do?
Actually, I would like to start from Tanah's words that she told about Korean startups or Korean technology or Korean companies, how they offer their services so smoothly. So I would like to start this point because we are so competitive and we are so risky country that as you know, we are like an angel, so the islands. We have 3 seas, and then the north part of the Korea, we have North Korea. So we are so small, we have so small market. So what does it mean? We should be global and we should expand our industry to global market. So and very at the beginning I told about Kakao. This is not mobility company. This is, they started as a messaging company, but they are doing now fintech, they are doing now Kakao mobility, they are offering Kakao taxi platform services, and they are now doing e-commerce. What does it mean? for very small Korean country and very small Korean market, they have always limit. So they should be expand beyond their business industry sector. So they are trying to find other industry section to expand their own business. That's why I would like to mention about Kakao. And second one, about Ua Brothers. They are also big tech company in Korea, but they are acquired by Berlin German company. But it is very interesting that they are now one of branch of Delivery Hero, but they are doing much better than their headquarters. I mean, their market position is quite bigger than Delivery Hero. So they are one of branch, but they are doing better than Delivery Hero. It means Korean companies should be cross-border industry. So our limitation and our small market size and our competitive environment is our secret sauce, I would like to point out. Yeah.
Very interesting perspective. Yes, Tanah, transferring sustainable solutions made in Indonesia. I mean, in GoTo Group, you have done a tremendous job on progressing. What is your plan to bring that to Europe? Is it your plan?
Well, unfortunately, actually, no. Fortunately, I mean, look, Indonesia so technology needs to scale, right? And Indonesia has definitely the population to scale. We have a huge middle income class. I think we're still maybe one of, the fifth largest country in the world. And we've got 84% mobile technology penetration rate, right? So we have this and by the way, less than 6% of the population has a credit card. And yet we found a way to get them onto a digital payment system, bypassing a lot of the traditional steps that other markets have taken. Like I said before, 25% of our almost 60 million users, out of the 60 million users, they're spending around 25% of their monthly income on our platform, and that's all digital payments. So, I mean, I think for us, we've been able to leapfrog a lot of the kind of normal journeys that other markets or other companies in more advanced markets have taken, precisely because Indonesia is the way that it is. We have incredibly urgent challenges that we have to respond to, whether it's environmental, whether it's social. And like I said before, we do not have the same runway that other companies or markets do or did to figure it out. And which is why the partnerships aspect of it is so incredibly important. We need companies that are complementary, that have complementary solutions to what our ecosystem needs to be able to accelerate getting to our targets. Our sustainability commitments are not siloed targets that we have, right? These are embedded into the way that our company sets its strategy or its growth targets for that year. It's embedded into the way that our executives are compensated. It's embedded into every policy and program and product that we have right now, because that's what me and my team have spent the last 3 years building. So irrespective of who's at the helm, our company will continue to do this just because of the size of our ecosystem and the responsibility that we have. And so this is where, I think for us, we don't try and do everything in-house. We want to be able to have this rich network, this rich ecosystem, encourage more and more startups, whether they're local or international, to come in and help Indonesia overall get towards its targets, because from its very inception, our company was set up to respond to primarily social challenges, right, that Indonesians on a daily basis faced. And so it's in our DNA. And I know a lot of companies say that, but it truly is in our DNA. And you can see it just from the things that we do or where we invest in. And so I think that's kind of the...
I think you made us having a big appetite to try the Indonesian market.
Come.
Maximilian, from logistics point of view, are you sourcing ideas already internationally from international startup connections, or is it rather something that is happening in Europe right now?
No, we are very focused on Europe. I mean, Europe is a huge market.
So what is then missing to make the jump? Or is there something missing to say, wow, why do we not go to Korea, to Japan, to China, Indonesia, to say, wow, it's such a vivid market? What held you back so far?
Focus, capital. I think that's the two key things. I think we used to be in a time where money was growing on the trees, so you could just raise it. But I think it has become a little bit more tight. So I'd say back, like if you had asked me that question 2 years ago, I would have said money is not the issue. It's more management attention. And I think, quite frankly, it's also competition. There's a lot of very strong local entrepreneurs. And I mean, me going to Indonesia, I have absolutely no clue about Indonesia. There's very strong talent pool there locally. So I think for us, we did actually export technology to Australia. So we worked together with an Australian startup that used our tech platform in order to hire then their talent locally and just continue building it from there. But other than that, nothing really in the APEC room.
Interesting. So I think you can sense a little bit the issue. We see two cases of very active innovation transfer efforts as part of a business model, and we see two examples where you say, okay, Indonesia is already a growth market sufficiently for us. We try to attract others, and you say, well, Asia, rather competitive, and my investors might not like if I defocus my activity. No? This is a nice mix. Maybe coming to the point then, asking you to Berlin, innovation hub, innovation transfer. What does Berlin do right to attract Asian innovation, and probably what does Berlin not do sufficiently yet to stimulate the other way? Or maybe first, what do you like in Berlin? Why do you think Berlin is the place to run your business?
So, of course, I think one of the best thing is probably people again. It's really all of you actually, and then connectedness to all sides of the world. We can see it here, and. But it's also, I think Berlin is luckily one of the capital of startup scenes, and not only we have startups, but we have also a corporate VCs and corporate innovation team like Bosch and Lufthansa, Audi. They are all present here. So when we want to talk to them, what they are thinking, connection, everything, I think we have a lot in Berlin. And when people come to Berlin, they are also connected to the other side of the Europe and part of the Germany. So I think it is really easy to start connecting to different people, meaning Berlin is a super strong hub. And then because the openness of the Berlin, I think those connection flows really smoothly.
Where do I need to go in Japan if I want to have a similar hub?
From mobility point of view, we are just creating, and that's going to happen probably this year in the end. So
we stay tuned.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Eunseo, what do you like?
Berlin.
Berlin, and where should we go if someone from the startups here wants to go to Korea? Where should we go?
First of all, I would like to tell Berlin is a crazy city, and in Berlin I can be a major. Like now. So on the stage, we are the major, we are the Asian. I'm a female, but I'm the major of this event. So this is the kind of a symbol of Berlin. So as an Asian female, I can do my own business in Berlin, and there are many kind of support system in Berlin to do my own business. And in my neighbor, there are very good role models like me. So this kind of environment make me very safe, and then make me trying to something new. So I like this environment. That's why I'm in Berlin, and I introduced to my Korean partners or Korean startups to enter here Berlin market, not Düsseldorf, not Munich, not Hamburg, because in these big cities, other big cities has traditional German big industries they have already. So for the startup, Berlin is mostly attractive city, which doesn't have a traditional industry. So what does it mean? If in Berlin someone is doing their own business, they can be their business. They can bring their business to European market or direct U.S. market, like HelloFresh, like N26. This is kind of a Berlin success story. And the other things I would like to recommend Korean startups, why we should be in Berlin, why we should do our business in Berlin, is power of country. So Germany is the economically leading country in EU. So this basic background of economically supporting is quite important to Korean companies. And vice versa, why you should enter Korean market, especially for Maximilian, I would like to recommend you to enter Korean market. Why? Because of the customer, because of the consumer, or because of your potential customer like big company in Korea. They are very trendy, they are very fast, and they are very flexible. So if you have any time to test your product in Korean market, maybe 3 months or 6 months, you can get result. If you should do it more or not. And as a test bed, it is the perfect market.
That sounds amazing, because convincing a German to test something new sometimes really takes some time.
That's right.
Now we got a deal here.
Yeah. So in 3 months, you can get any result and any reaction from Korean consumer. Yeah.
Perfect. Great pitch for Korea. And so, Tanah, where should a startup from Berlin go when they wanted to enter the Indonesian market? Is there a hub, a place to be, a location to be, a person to go? Or what is it?
Well, come to us, obviously.
You're located where?
Go to Bali. Like, I think a lot of Europeans actually are there right now, if I'm not mistaken, since the beginning of COVID. No, look, I think I'm not going to repeat what the other panelists have already shared regarding the positives, right, of Berlin. I think if you're a startup founder or you work in a startup here, you're obviously a natural problem solver. And I'm going to say this cautiously. From what I've seen in Berlin, this is my first time, by the way, there's not enough problems here. I think you guys don't have enough problems. And we, on the other hand, have a crap load of them. And look, the problems that we face are problems that we don't, like I've said before, don't have time to try and figure out ourselves how to address, right? And these are problems where when it rains, like even if you don't care about the people so much and you're very business, driven, one day of rain, the whole city floods. Our business shuts down because our bike drivers can't get around the city. That costs us hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's an operational risk we face every time it rains. But guess what? Jakarta, you probably know, is sinking. It's one of the fastest sinking cities in the world, and it's only 8 meters above sea level now, I think. And that's getting closer and closer as the sea levels rise.
I think you built a new capital, right?
Well, that's so I'm not going to comment on the government, but they... their solution is move the capital city and put sandbags in Jakarta, which it's not going to be a permanent solution. But look, this is just an example of the types of of just how urgent it is, these problems that we face, and why, for us, our company has to respond to them, because we don't have another choice. Otherwise, we're done for, if we don't think about these things and we don't build them into our operations today and preempt a lot of what is, by the way, already happening and disrupting our day-to-day operations. So I think if you are a problem solver, if you are committed to, I'm not going to call them sustainability challenges, they're just challenges full stop, right, that all of us face. And so as a society, as a planet, And that includes also the social aspect of it, right? Income disparity, also those that are the populations that are most vulnerable to things like climate change. By the way, my European friends complain about how every year the start of ski season gets later and later. Here, as I said, in Jakarta, we're trying to deal with over 40-degree temperature in a stifling concrete city, or houses being flooded and on a daily basis. It's just insane, the scale of how different or how disconnected it feels sometimes. So again, I think if you are a startup founder or working in a startup, you have a solution, use your brain, those big brains of yours, come to a place like Indonesia. There's tons of places, by the way. Indonesia's not the only market like this. But come to the more vulnerable markets and work with companies like ours where we are on the ground. We have the knowledge and the insights that probably a company like yours is looking for, right? You don't have to come in and spend 6 months in Indonesia. I can tell you in 30 seconds exactly what some of the logistics challenges are, because by the way, we distribute around 1 million packages a day in Indonesia, in the largest archipelago in the world. That is a pretty insane data, and there's so much efficiencies that we need to improve on. So I welcome you also, Max, to come.
That's very nice of you.
But I'll shut up now. But that's my spiel.
So Maximilian, while you definitely are about to pack your suitcases, the question is just where to go first, right? And what would you expect from a hub in Indonesia, in Korea, and Japan to make you really feel comfortable to do the step, and also to convince your investor? I think I know that argument is always coming, that your investor feeling confident for you defocusing towards an Asian hub. What does it need to offer?
All right. Let me think about it for a second. So, first of all, of course, the market opportunity has to be big enough. But we don't have to debate about that in Indonesia. So I think that's a given. I think it's a combination of look. At the end of the day, if you have capital and if you have talent, you can just tackle any chance. And I think that is the most. I think that's the most important one, and if I'm able to convince an investor that I have the right team to get something done, and that has to be, I really believe it has to be a local team. I'm not a big fan of sending a German to Indonesia and say, look, it's amazing, you're going to figure it out, right? It has to be a team that knows the market. Of course, also I'm happy, I'm a big believer in diverse teams, so happy to bring someone from Germany, but then it has to be run very decentrally, locally by the team. And as long as you have great talent, I can repeat myself, you can just tackle any challenge.
That's true, but I also think one of the most challenging part, right? If you go to a foreign country, how to get access to the best talent without having a brand, without having a network. I think that's where innovation hubs can play a major role. And by the way, this is what I enjoyed in Berlin. I don't want to make promotion for Berlin, but here, also from the government side, Berlin Partner and Co., they supported me as well when I started my company in Berlin to get all this access. And that's why I think innovation hubs can play a major role, because it's super tough. Even within Germany, coming from one city to the other, you lose your network and then you need support. Now come towards the last round. What would be, if you would have one wish for free towards Berlin, the Berlin hub, what would you want to have to make this even a better landing spot for Asian startups?
I think we are doing actually a great job, but we want to have more Asian startups so that they can relate to, they can have one of the things important for innovation to happen is you have a first starter and a little bit older startup and a little bit older one. You learn from pairs and then, not from unicorns to start with, but one step up from where you are. So we need more clouds from Asian countries so that we can learn from each other, and on the basis of the background is something similar. By the way, I wanted to offer you also to come to Japan because
it's amazing.
Of course, right? So because we have a great talent, that's for sure. We have also logistics startups maybe you can be partner with. And then what is more is we have one of the biggest conglomerate who is working on shipment and logistics in the world, a lot of them. So your VC is going to be super happy. Exit
the third red carpet is rolling out. But I like you having a little bit of a marketplace and competition up here. That's how business is working and creates best results. Perfect. Also, one wish. What should Berlin do different and better if you have one?
One wish. It's really hard to answer. There are so many wishes. But yeah, at least this kind of event like Asia Berlin would be very important to empower as an Asian founders or as a startups. So maybe this kind of event funded by or supported by government should be always there. So I already know the history of Asia Berlin. It started 1997. At the first time, it was cultural exchange, but now it is grown up as a tech scene event. So, like this event should be, always there. Yeah.
Perfect. We're working on it. Yeah.
Okay, I think these events are great. I love meeting people. I'm an extrovert, if you can't tell. But that said, there has to be kind of an underlying engagement, right, to make it feel real for people like myself and vice versa. And so I think the kind of bonds you can build at this kind of event and carry throughout the year, because you need to encourage, I think, a lot more cross-pollination. So the things that I shared before, maybe some of you in the room are already familiar with some of the challenges that a market like Indonesia faces, but it's so much more powerful when I'm telling you personally or professionally as an individual the kinds of things, the kinds of challenges we're trying to tackle and what we've done that has worked or hasn't worked or what have you. So that encourages, I think that plants seeds in a lot of other people's minds, and it gives a cognitive diversity. It's not just a diversity because I'm, an Asian woman and Max is not, but rather because we have very different minds and personalities and all of that. And so I think that's the kind of cross-pollination that needs to happen, and that can't just happen in one event. It takes time, and you need to nurture it, that hopefully will then bring about the kinds of partnerships that will help not just companies like ours, but countries like ours get towards its sustainability goals, because those, to me and to many other Indonesians and a lot of people around the world, these are pre-competitive. We will happily and have and continue to work with our biggest competitors because it can help accelerate the whole ecosystem moving towards whether it's clean mobility systems, whether it's better logistics, whether it's better packaging, because if it's just us that does it, it kind of defeats the purpose. But if the whole e-commerce industry is doing it, or the whole platform ride-hailing industry is doing it, it's a win-win for everybody. So I think that's the kind of thing that we want to see happening, and because it's pre-competitive and because we have platforms and organizations like Asia Berlin working on it, I think it could bring about something very, very fruitful.
Perfect. Thank you. Maximilian, is there something Berlin could do for you to go abroad and explore opportunities in Asia? Is there something?
I think
but you have the red carpets are out. I know this.
I think I'd rather turn to you guys for that. I think Berlin should do its homework in Berlin. No, quite frankly, I mean I've lived abroad a substantial amount of time in Shanghai, Beijing, Moscow, Delhi. And Boston, and I'm just trying to put myself, so I know what it feels like to be a foreigner abroad. And just thinking about Berlin as a city, I think Berlin has a unique opportunity to establish itself as the gateway to Europe. With Brexit and London out, I think the city of Berlin is just so open and so diverse in bringing different cultures together like I've never seen it in any other place. And that's just amazing. But there's competition, right? Amsterdam is also a pretty cool place. And I think there are the basics that needs to be fixed in Berlin. Like we recruit internationally. I have more than people from 40 different nationalities, also a lot from Asia Pacific working in my company. And it's sad that I have to send someone to go to do any sort of I don't know, to get a bank account, or to do any sort of bureaucratic job. And I think that would be really great if the city could step up a little bit more in the basics. You know, having these kind of events is just amazing, but that would be my sincere.
So great fundamentals, but bureaucracy.
Really start working on the infrastructure fundamentals.
Perfect. Yeah, remains me to wrap up. So thank you, all of you, for your participation, the great energy. I could feel entrepreneurship, I could feel openness, I could feel tolerance, diversity. So we had all the ingredients on stage. We have all ingredients in Berlin, and definitely we have all the ingredients as well at the major hubs in Asia. And it's about us people on the panel, but also in the audience, to connect the dots, reach out there, create networks, let's be open, and follow a common target, a common vision for a better world. And thank you for joining the afternoon panel here. And let's move on to the next one. Thank you.